Welcome back to another episode of the Orange Crush podcast presented by Newton Scott and Associates. We'll have more on them later in this episode. But today, guys, we have a massive guest. It is truly an honor of mine. One of my favorite college football voices. You probably know him as the film guy or just a ball knower in this instance. But Brooks Austin, man, it is truly a pleasure to have you on the show. How are you doing, brother? It's an exciting time.
Man, I'm doing great. I always appreciate coming on Clemson podcast because I think the second fan base to ever discover our network and what we do at like a massive rate was actually probably Clemson, dating all the way back to that 2021 preseason or like first game of the year matchup. I did such an exhaustive preview going into that year on who Clemson was and what Clemson was going to do offensively and defensively. I felt like I knew the Clemson Tigers roster in 2021 as well as anybody else in all of the world of college football because, man, I enjoyed studying it, man. I enjoy studying Clemson every time I get the opportunity to do so. And I damn sure enjoyed watching their quarterback last year, who we're here to talk about today, man.
Yeah, and the reason that I sent you that initial message on Twitter was the video you put out at the Elite 11. Yeah. And knowing you and sort of the work that you guys do at the Film Guy Network and just the way you study the game, the way you appreciate just how everything works and the mechanics of it all. And the thing, I don't want to spoil it because I'd love to get the audience get your full sort of take on it. But just what was it like watching Cade Klubnik as a counselor at Elite 11? Because I think the way you processed it and the way you were able to explain it is why we're here today. So I guess we'll just start there.
Yeah. So first and foremost, like I watched Cade at the Elite 11 as a high school athlete when he won it. Same event, same place, same location. 3 or 4 years later, he's back as a counselor. So I knew who he was, like character-wise. Like I know who Cade Klubnik is. I wasn't like blown away by, oh, this guy's a great person. Like we all know that. You knew that from the moment you met him when he was 17, 18 years old. So like I knew he was going to work hard. I knew he was going to be a great person. I knew he was going to be a great leader, all those good things. And I even know, I feel like what kind of a football player he is. But as I said in that video that you're alluding to, man, like I am someone who has, I think, dedicated my life to football. I wake up every morning and I talk about football. I wake up every morning and I study football. I wake up every morning and I operate my day around my family, my wife, my kids, and football. That's what I do. Like I love football. I don't love football as much as Cade Klubnik, and I'm okay telling you that. And I don't know if there's very many people in this world that are in that stratosphere of someone who I look at and I watched for 90 minutes to 2 hours, and I'm like, damn, dude, I gotta wake up tomorrow not only loving football more, but I gotta dedicate myself to my craft like this guy does to his. Like it was borderline paralysis by analysis watching this young man work. Okay, like he was constantly. Throughout the 4 days or 3 days that he was there, the quarterbacks would be working. The other camp counselors would be standing around, and then you'd look over in the end zone, and Cade Klubnik might as well be getting a personal workout session with Jordan Palmer in the middle of everybody else working. He's over off to the side getting isolated work, probably working on one minute movement that he has been exhaustively going after for the last 45 minutes. Like. I told him afterwards, man, like I heard him allude into an interview with, I think, Pete Nicholson on 3 about like really studying Joe Burrow and really studying, I think it was my man from Western Kentucky that ended up going to New England, but like studying Burrow. And I'm like, bro, when you say you're studying Burrow, everybody's gonna be like, oh my God, this guy thinks he's way better than he is. But in reality, what Burrow did is the same thing is the same thing that Cade's about. These guys are hyper obsessive about their mechanical structure. How they throw the football is paramount to them. Talk for 5 minutes with Cade Klubnik about how he throws the football, and you would think you're talking to some type of, what do you call it? People who like data map people, like biomechanical engineer. Like that's who you would think you were listening to because he has studied so hard. How do I maximize what God gave me? And like that's the goal. Like when I go out and I look for football players and as the director of scouting, and when I want people who love football, but have the passion and energy to work tirelessly to find whatever minute advantage that they can find. And that's what Cade Klubnik is about. And honestly, I didn't get it I didn't get it when I first watched it, like last year going into the Georgia game, watching tape, and then watching the Georgia game, watching the tape. I didn't get why at the end of the year he was dicing up Texas's defense better than anybody else. I didn't get how this dude was like constantly making bigger and bigger throws every single. Now I get it. Now I 100% get it. It's like breathing for him. Growth is going to happen. I said this in that video, and I stand by this. I don't know if Cade Klubnik will ever be like a premier NFL starter, but that dude's going to live on an NFL football team as long as he wants. He'll be on an NFL football team until he physically cannot throw a football any longer.
Yeah, it's super impressive the way you sort of lay it out. And I think something you had mentioned there, it's like breathing for him as this season progressed, 24 season rather, and you compare it back to his first initial slate of starts as a sophomore, things just look a little more easier, a little more natural. And you can tell this guy studies, lives, breathes football. But you mentioned something that's really fascinating, and another reason why your insight is so valuable is you were also at that Clemson-Georgia game to open up the 2024 season, and It was rough. Aside a couple throws from Klubnik, the Clemson offense couldn't move, and there was just a lot of those same mistakes. You felt like some of the footwork in the pocket, some of the early decision-making from him, you just felt like, is there going to be progress made? So when you look at that game, and I'd love to hear your insight on what you sort of took away from that, because as you had mentioned, you study that opener. You treat it like it's the required reading for the summer, essentially.
Yeah.
You go from that to the Texas game, and you're like, holy cow, like what is happening here? Just what was that first experience like at the Georgia game?
But, like, obviously he had a really bad start in that football game. I think he spikes a football to film off his feet the first attempt of the football game.
First pass.
Yeah, like that's not ideal. But for me, when I studied that game, going into it, I expected Clemson to be a man-to-man pressure football team on the defensive side of the football because that's their identity. That's who I thought they were. They come out in that football game, they're playing soft cover 3, like real soft coverage, something that Clemson doesn't do. Clemson, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I envision Clemson defense as we're getting after your ass for 4 quarters, and we're going to hunt you. And we're going to get downhill. We're going to play with linebackers downhill. We're going to play with defensive linemen downhill. We're going to hunt you. That's not what they did to Georgia. So it was a different defensive game plan. Offensively, I think it was 2023, they led all of college football in snaps per game. They took like 50 snaps in that first game of the year last year against Georgia. They completely just like boa constricted the pace. And I thought that was interesting as well. It was watching Clemson play a different style of football than I expected them to play, than they normally play. So that first and foremost stuck out like a sore thumb. Obviously, after that game, I think the major talking point was about the lack of weapons, the lack of speed or whatever nonsense, because London Humphreys ran off for 85 yards down the sideline, and everybody's like, oh my God, Clemson's slow. I think that got overblown a little bit, but to be honest, the growth of that football team was obvious in those first and last football games. Like, Texas and Georgia were slightly different football teams last year. Georgia got them twice. Georgia was the quote-unquote better football team 2 times in a row. But I thought Texas had the better defense last year, personally. I thought Texas had the best defense in college football last year, apart from the last 4 games. That was Ohio State. But majority of the year, the Texas Longhorns were the best defense in the sport. And I looked up, and I believe Cade Klubnik dropped 35 on them. Did he not? 28, something like that? The most points anybody scored against Texas this year. And it wasn't because Texas was just letting them have it. Those were big-time throws. By the way, with an offense that didn't have a running back. You didn't have a running back in your damn playoff game. You had to bring a wide receiver back there who's talented, by the way. Number 8's a big physical runner. I think he's probably a better running back than he is a separator as an X receiver. But y'all didn't have a ton of help, and he was making big-time throws in that football game. And that's what he is. He's deadly accurate. He's slippery, too. That guy's really hard to bring down for a not very physically impressive human. Like, Malik Morris is a physically impressive human. I think Cade Klubnik's harder to get on the ground right now through 3 years as a or 2 years as a starter.
Before we get back to this video, we'd like to thank the title sponsor for this podcast, Newton, Scott, and Associates. This team is headlined by Jeff Scott, former Clemson assistant coach and 2-time national champion, as well as Eric Newton, a longtime local and trusted real estate partner. These two are teaming up to provide a first-class experience for all Clemson fans. Whether you're looking to buy, sell, or build in the upstate area of South Carolina, you can trust Newton Scott and Associates. Choose the same team that Clemson coaches are selecting when they're looking to buy, sell, or build, all the way from Tigertown to Lake Kiowee. For more information, you can find them at newtonscottsc.com or by calling the number 864-722-9062. That's 864-722-9062. Now, let's get back to the video. Yeah, it's interesting the way you lay it out and sort of the progression and the growth. At that point with no running back, it makes it much easier for a defense like Texas where you get to study Clemson for 3-ish weeks and see, okay, their Phil Maffa's basically out there. It's like a horse limping. Like it really doesn't have much to it. And
shout out Peyton Stricko, by the way.
Oh, Clemson fans will love that for you. You've earned your stripes today, Brooks. You've earned your stripes. But it's interesting the way it's laid out is the defense is a tell. It feels like Clemson was passing the ball every single time in that Texas game, and Klubnik's still able to dissect it, move out of the pocket. And you mentioned the slippery aspect of it. It's that playmaking ability that wasn't really there in 2023. Maybe he was leaving the pocket too soon. Maybe it was a lack of weapons. I don't know. But for you, when you saw go ahead.
I think for me in 2023, and I've seen this at other programs too, when you're not just the guy, but you're the only guy. In 2023, if Cade Klubnik goes down with an injury, what happens to Clemson? You know what I mean? Like, who's their starting quarterback? A freshman, Christopher Vizina? Do you start the walk-on? You know what I'm saying? Like, in 2024, you feel, I would imagine they felt a little bit better about their backup quarterback situation. In 2025, they're going to feel really, really good or much better about the backup quarterback situation and kind of let him play free. Because Cade by nature is a competitor. Like, he's going to want to extend plays almost to a default, like almost to a negative. He's going to continue to compete almost to where, like, hey, buddy, I wish you would have taken the sack because now we tried to create something big and we made a negative. Like, I think so. Having that sustained backup quarterback play is the most important thing for an athletic quarterback to play freely.
Yeah, there was the mention you said turning a big play into a negative. There was an instance in it was his sophomore year against North Carolina. Clemson has no timeouts throwing the goal line, and he gets away with it, trying to do a little bit too much, and you see him and Sweeney just sort of trailing off into the locker room. Sweeney's letting him have it. He's like, hey, great job, but don't do that again. So there's that evolution there of just sort of understanding situational football that has also helped them out.
And you Clemson fans know this, but it's one of the first things I noticed, like watching, like being on the sideline and watching Dabo coach. Like, you got to be receptive rather. You got to be receptive of hard coaching. Like when he called that timeout against Georgia, I think I watched Dabo drop an F-bomb. I think he said, don't you ever effing do that. Don't you ever freaking call a timeout. Those are my timeouts. And I'm like, oh, this is your guys, your leader right here, and you're out here on national television cooking him. So you got to be a little bit thicker skinned to play there. And I think he's a perfect example of a Clemson quarterback to me. I mean, he's the most ideal Dabo Swinney quarterback for me.
You feel you had been here last spring, Brooks, when the conversation was that Clemson had perhaps found their Stetson Bennett and Trent Bierman in the spring game, and that was
Oh yeah, spring game will do that to you. He was lights out, brother. I think he was like, what was he, like 8 for 11 for 84 yards and 2 tutties after watching the first two guys struggle.
He was pretty good. Can't blame them. Yeah,
pretty good. He wasn't bad at all. Hey, state champion in high school too, I believe. Isn't he from South Carolina?
Yeah, he's right down there, right down the road at Daniel High School.
Yep,
he's a winner. A good little, nice little backup quarterback.
Scrappy, real lunch pail.
I think we've heard Sweeney use those exact words when describing him. Is scrappy.
Yeah,
but it's like you said, that competition helps.
Feel the fight on tape.
Yeah, that competition though kind of fosters a real healthy energy at fall camp, and I think the addition. We'll talk about Clemson later, but the addition of Allin and just that different switch in energy. When you go from Wes Goodwin to Tom Allen, it's like going from like driving an older car to getting like a Tesla Roadster out there and you just letting it rip. And so it's something else in terms of the energy for Clemson so far. And that's very cliche ridden talking about energy as a thing there. But one thing that, Brooks, I'd love to get your opinion on is I think in terms of Klubnik, you're talking about how meticulous he is if you're thinking in the lens of his, and you're watching the 2024 tape, what do you think's going through his mind of, man, if we could just improve this mechanic or this one thing, that leap, because everyone's still, there's an opportunity to get better, of course. What do you think is the area of emphasis that he's watching that game tape and going, okay, we probably need to fix this, and we're on a whole different stratosphere of playing?
So he spent most of the time out there in LA with Jordan working on fundamentals outside of the pocket, rolling right, particularly rolling right. So that to me looked like something that he personally was working on diligently during the week out there. But for me, as if I'm evaluating him for like the NFL, for example, if I were saying, hey, here's this individual, how can he improve his draft stock? For me, it's the horsepower category, right? Like, make bigger throws, make more juicier type of plays. I think the chicken and rice type of plays that require you to be great, that 25 and in, being deadly accurate, making good decisions, putting the ball where it needs to be. I think he's really, really good in those departments. I think the questions about Cade are, he's only about 6'2". He's only about 210 pounds. He's not 6'4". Okay. He's only about a 4.65 runner. He's not a 4.4 runner, right? Like there are certain physical limitations to Cade's game, and I don't know how many of those can be improved upon, right? Like I don't know how much bigger, faster, stronger a 22-year-old human being's going to get. But that being said, like me personally, I think a lot of people forgot last year was only his second year starting. I think everybody just like looked at Cade and was like, "Oh, this is an older guy." No, that's a second-year starter that's going into year 3 this year. And history of college football tells us normally that year 3 growth is a real thing. You normally either perform the same rate, which is really, really high rates for Cade. What was it, like 3,600 yards passing last year? You'd probably take that again. But year 3 progression tells you there's an opportunity for not substantial growth, but reasonable growth.
Yeah, it's something I feel like we don't really see much anymore in this era of collegiate athletics, where development and patience too, because there was a conversation with Sweeney talking about their kids that want to come to Clemson and play quarterback, but we're sticking with you. We're gonna ride this out. And it's fascinating I think Klubnik and Riley as an offensive coordinator quarterback duo, I think it's one of 2 in the country that will be working together for 3 years. I think the other one is Georgia Tech with Haynes King. But that continuity is so important because you just understand the language, the rhythm. There's so many advantages to, and you and I talked about this off air just about Miami, the handpicking of the quarterbacks. There's just not a lot of continuity there with the Hurricanes in that situation. How valuable is that? And when you look at Clemson as sort of a championship contender, we'll get into the nuts and bolts of that. But just that in sync kind of nature with Garrett Riley and Klubnik, just how important is that going to be, not only for a quarterback going to his 3rd year, but just understanding the ins and outs of what Riley's preaching on that offense with the returning starters that they brought back?
Yeah, so I think there's 3 categories of understanding an offense, and this is going to sound super nerdy, right? There's the what we do, right? Here's the offense, here's what we do. There's how we do it, right? And then there's why, okay? When you understand the why as to why your coordinator is calling certain plays, then you see it the same way. And that guy is standing 900 feet from you in a box and talking to you through your ear. So when you go into a huddle or when you're standing at the line of scrimmage, because most teams are no huddle teams nowadays, when you're looking at the defense and you hear the offensive coordinator call the play, that first year, all you're listening for is, what are we running? And then you get it and you're like, okay, that's what we're running. And then the second year in the system, you really, really understand how we're running it, right? Where everybody else is supposed to be. That 3rd year in that system, I understand why my coach is calling this play. When the play comes in, I know what it is. I know how we run it. And now I know why he's calling it, because the defense is in that specific defense. Coach called this. This is the why. Now I know where to go. And now I know really how to attack you, because I know exactly why my coach called the play. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I love the you called it nerdy, but I'm absorbing this, man. I love it.
So for me, that's what it is. Like the first year in the system is okay. Like I'm smart. I understand what it is. Like I know what we're doing. I still don't know why we're doing it. And then that second and third year, like we really start to I have freedom too. That third year in the system, that first year in the system, second year in the system, I might have been making decisions that weren't necessarily the best for the team, but I felt like were great, right? Like keeping balls in the red zone when I probably shouldn't. I think Cade, most notably, pretty famously got cooked after football games for making decisions that he probably shouldn't have. Okay, so that type of stuff gets cleaned up in the second, third, fourth year in the systems.
Yeah, you mentioned that one of those famous calls in the end zone was against Miami, his first year as a starter. Famously, just give it to Shipley, man, and takes it
Yeah.
himself.
Like
Cost them the game in
we have
overtime.
automatic gives, baby. We have automatic gives. You're not allowed to keep this football. Yeah, and he just decided he just wanted to play free. I thought I saw something, coach.
Yeah, it's like, hey, this is like what I thought it was like. Let's start 6 or 7 for him. It's like, hey, let's rein it in a little bit. Let's
Yeah.
just follow what we're teaching here. What's fascinating about the way you've sort of all laid this out, the continuity, just what he physically, all the stuff that we're getting here, it all culminates in what Clemson's trying to achieve this year. It feels like this is the first time in quite some time where I'm thinking, okay, there's actually a legitimate chance here for Sweeney to make a run, as opposed to the last couple of years where you had sort of the buts. This could happen. This turns up. And obviously injuries are a factor in a season that could run 16, 17, 18 games. But when you evaluate Clemson, you begin to evaluate some of the contenders. Do you agree with that pushback? I'd love to just get your thoughts initially, and then we can dive into that.
I mean, for me, man, like I love the wide receiver core if healthy. I think they're like 3 legitimate weapons deep, like really, really high caliber wide receiver weapons deep at Clemson for the first time in a while. I think the offensive line has improved. I like Cade. Obviously, we've talked about that. The defensive line this year could be like Clemson good again. Like Peter Woods could be a game wrecker, right? Was it DeAndre Capehart? Like he's a mountain of a human being, and I love Jamal Anderson as well. And the edge rusher from Phoenix City is great as well. TJ Parker.
Yeah.
I mean, man, you guys could be absolutely dominant up front on the defensive line, like for the first time in a long time. Y'all been good. Y'all have always been good, but when y'all were winning national champions, dude, y'all were unblockable up in the front four, and y'all might return to that at spurts this year. But my expectations for Clemson this year have just as much to do about what I feel about Clemson as they do about the rest of the ACC. I think the ACC is about as down in terms of who's the number 2 in this conference as they've been in quite a while. Like Florida State is down and scrapping and crawling to get like, are they going to be 7-5 this year? Can they get to 8-4 this year? Right? Syracuse is rebuilding. Obviously, Miami is rebuilding. And I'm not as bullish on what Miami's got going on this year as everybody else seems to be. Everybody else seems to think that Carson Beck is just going to walk down there and do the same shit Cam Ward just did. I don't know about that. And I'm a guy who watched Carson Beck the last 2 years as a starter. I don't know about that. So I think that I don't want to say this on a Clemson channel, but they should walk through the ACC. That's the way I feel about Clemson and the rest of the conference this year.
There'll be a couple of games that'll, I think, make fans nervous. But at the end of the day, when it comes to the talent, and I think the coaching staff, more importantly, has been, I think, is probably as solid as it's been in quite some time, where there's not we've had plenty of conversations on this podcast about Clemson's prior coaching staffs. But anyways, when you mention the ACC and just sort of the grand scope of it, and you mentioned FSU will be scrapping. They're undefeated in bulletin board material, man. They're bringing up the Castellanos. Nick Saban can't save them.
Insane. the Nick Saban quote was like, "Okay, you've been drinking today." He was crossfaded by the time the ACC stuff got in there. Did you read that quote? Man said, I don't know if y'all been watching, but I've been ransack over this conference. This conference is crap. I am him, sir. I don't think we watched the same football last year. Have y'all ever watched me play? I start extremely fast. His first career start, I think he threw for 138 yards in an overtime loss to Northern Illinois. So
the paper popper right there. I think his completion percentage was like below. It was somewhere in the 50s. QBR is like 137th of the nation. Like I don't know what I'm
turnover
seeing.
rates through the roof. Like I get it. Like Gus Malzahn's trying to make you the next Nick Marshall. Like that's cool. Don't know if it's going to pan out like you think it is.
When Brooks, we really appreciate the time today. But when you look, we've covered so much and really appreciate it. When you look at a more of a national scope, and obviously there's so many, it feels pretty wide open this year in terms of just there's a lot of talent everywhere. And the playoff system hopefully has been fixed. We're not going to be giving Boise State a top 4 seed again. Let's hope not. But when you look at sort of the overall picture, I love asking. I know it's June, and that's sort of rat poison in itself, but don't want to put you on the spot. But do you have a couple teams that you're watching and you eyeing the tape and you're like, man, this could be somebody that's could be dangerous. And I guess it's good for our Clemson audience to see it. Okay, who's someone that maybe on a bye week? Who should I start watching just in case?
Yeah, I mean, if you're a football fan in general, like I'd be watching Arch Manning this year. Like I know everyone wants to say that this kid's got clout because of his name and he ain't nothing and he ain't played nobody. He played minuscule high school football in private leagues in Louisiana, and he only beat the hell out of Louisiana Monroe, and he only threw for 300 yards against Mississippi State, and they're the worst team in the conference. And it's like, yeah, but he's going to be a dude. Like you can doubt everything that you want, but like if I just told you this, right, in a vacuum, I said I got a 6'3", 215-pound athlete that is mechanically clean as humanly possibly could be. It's like we 3D printed him from Quarterbacks Mechanics, magazine. Okay, we got that. Oh, by the way, 4'6" athlete. Oh, by the way, has had high levels of football conversation since he was able to talk. Okay, if I just told you that in a vacuum, you would sign up for it. You'd be like, that kid's going to be really, really good. And then I tell you his name's Arch Manning, and you'll be like, oh, well, he's only good because it's his name. No. This guy's going to be really, really good. I think this guy's going to be so good this year that everybody looks at Steve Sarkisian and goes, why in the hell were you playing the 7th rounder last year when you had the nation's best defense? What were you doing? Like, I legitimately think it's going to be that good this year. I think there's going to be some turnovers, but there's going to be some, what this guy set for 2? There's going to be a lot of that.
Hey, he's a player. He's a baller. He's just got that, he's got the the it factor. It's so that another one of those cliche written things, but you just watch him on the field and just some of and obviously Manning is the name on his jersey is going to drive a lot of attention, probably more negative early on. And I can see it now. There's an early pick or something in a big game. Let's say he throws an early pick in that first quarter against Ohio State. Everyone's going to be going on one of these and being like, oh, here, I told you guys. And then watch Texas find a way to outduel Julian Sand or something. And
you bet your bottom dollar there's going to be a toe to sew somewhere with Arch Manning this year. It's either going to be folks like me saying, I told you this guy's going to be great, or everybody else saying, I told you just because of his name. There's going to be a lot of told you so with regards to Arch this year.
Brooks, final question here. Really appreciate your time on this show, and I hope guys enjoyed it as well. But first opener, it seems like a pretty big one here, Death Valley, with a Clemson and LSU. Brian Kelly yet to win an opener as the head coach of the LSU Tigers, but so many different factors, so many angles to take it from. When you look at this game at its face value, just what are your initial thoughts as we're getting closer to fall camp and closer to that kickoff on August 31st?
Yeah, so I know this is a Clemson podcast, and let me ask you, what position group, maybe on the defensive side of the football, do you associate LSU most with?
I think as of recently, I feel like defensive back might be the first thought that I probably go towards. Is
bingo.
Okay, yeah.
Defensive back. Okay, defensive back, wide receiver. That's kind of what LSU is known for, right? Did you know we've gone 3 NFL drafts in a row without an LSU Tiger defensive back being drafted in the top 90? It's the first time in 25 years that LSU has gone 3 straight cycles without a top 3 round pick at the defensive back position. And if you look at their roster right now, apart from DJ Pickett, the 5-star freshman, I still don't find it. I still don't see it. So, I am worried, especially for LSU, especially after watching Sawyer Robinson and Baylor throw for 450 on that head top in a bowl game. Okay, so, That is a major concern. Okay. And when I watched the tape, and I just got done watching it, LSU versus Baylor, I know why they gave up 450 yards passing, because they just loaded the box and said, you're not running the football today. I don't know what in the hell Blake Baker's going to be week 1 against Clemson. And in fact, I don't think Blake Baker knows what he's going to be, because to me, it seems like Blake's idea every week is like, hey, what can we do to make everybody else go, what the hell is LSU doing today on defense? It's like, that's the number one goal. Can we make everybody go, ooh, wow, what are they doing today? Meanwhile, give up 370 yards rushing to Alabama. A month later, give up 450 yards passing to Baylor. I don't know. I don't know what to think about that. I will tell you this. That quarterback battle between Nuss and Klubnik is going to be really, really fun to watch. Those are two guys that play the position the way that I like to watch it be played, okay? They play it the right way. They read keys like NFL football players. They don't bail out of pockets. They don't have insane, like crazy, I just do whatever I want, ADD footwork, right? Like they play the position the right way. So I'm going to be watching it like crazy. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Could be a future preview of some NFL quarterbacks in the near future, and just I think 2 potential playoff contenders as well. But we'll find out pretty soon here in not a couple weeks, couple months. Right? That's kind of a depressing thought. But Brooks, where can our audience find you? I would give you the floor to advertise your stuff, man.
Yeah, so I do a lot of work on social media. Obviously, you can find me there at Brooks Austin BA on all your social media platforms, whichever one's your preferred one. But I guess what most people know me for is my YouTube work. We're available. Find us the Film Guy Network and subscribe, man. I always tell people, if you like football, you will love our channel. If you like someone who loves football, you will love our channel. Okay. That's the way we approach it. It's a football first thing. And when you watch us, the number one thing you will say is, damn, that guy loves ball. You're right. I do.
There you go. If you were looking for a love of football, additional to your viewing of the Orange Crush podcast, of course, but feel free to check out the Film Guy Network and Brooks Austin. We want to thank him for his time today. And guys, thank you. If you've stayed through the entire 31 minutes, subscribe if you haven't already to Clemson at TigerNet. We want to thank Newton Scott and Associates and Chick-fil-A for their sponsors. You probably heard about them in our little ad break. But guys, thank you as always for tuning in. Subscribe for more. God bless y'all, and take care.